We got somebody whipping the FedEx truck literally like as we speak. That's awesome. I
I
love that.
love that. That's amazing. Just wave too. But yeah, thanks everybody, both in Divine and Divine X for being able to come out tonight. And thank you most of all to Corey for being able to just, give up some of your time to give, Divine users kind of an intro into Amazon wholesale, since I know that's something that a lot of people have a ton of interest in. And you're kind of one of the foremost experts on that, kind of in the circles we run with. So really appreciate you making yourself available to everyone here. Do you mind, for anyone who doesn't know you, kind of just give them a quick, 60-second or less overview, like who you are specifically, how you're relevant in the Amazon space, your experience there, and kind of, why you're here talking tonight?
Yeah, for sure. So, guys, I'll give you kind of my full background. I'll try to condense it as brief as possible. So, I started selling on Amazon right after college graduation. So, in May of 2017. And I started with used books. So, I was going to thrift stores, buying books, flipping them on Amazon for 20, 50. Some of these textbooks, as some of you guys know, can go for an upwards of $100. So, started with used books. Then, about 2 or 3 months into doing books, I transitioned into online arbitrage. This was right when tactical arbitrage was starting to get big. And so I did OA for about a year and a half, right up until the end of 2018. And then I remember the date perfectly. January 9th of 2019 is when I made my first ever cold call to a wholesale supplier. So really over the last, I guess that was about 5 years ago, almost to the day, have been doing 100% wholesale, 100% through Amazon, buying mainly from distributors, but doing some brand direct work as well. And in that amount of time, done just over 11.5 million in lifetime sales with wholesale. Fully remote, so I have a prep center. I don't have a warehouse. I've got a couple of virtual employees that run pretty much the whole operation. And I started tweeting on Twitter also probably about a year ago, almost to the day. And so that's kind of how Casey and I got connected. And yeah, I'm just here to kind of give you some information about wholesale and hopefully answer some of your questions.
Sweet. So, do you mind giving a bit of a rundown with your posting kind of both maybe some new members as well as in our free server? Some of them might still kind of just be acclimating to the idea of Amazon reselling in general. Can you give
Mhm.
like a quick little, like 30 to 60-second overview of just basically the Amazon reselling process, or at least like a high level overview of how it works? And then just give us a little primer on how wholesale differs from what a lot of people might think of when they think of Amazon reselling.
Yeah, so I guess first let me go quickly into like wholesale versus OA. Oh, and I guess that kind of explains like what wholesale is. So when it comes to buying wholesale to sell on Amazon, so really all I'm doing is I'm going to either directly to the manufacturer or going to an authorized distributor and buying brand name products at wholesale prices, usually in bulk quantities, right? Which is how we get some of the better pricing, and then turning around and flipping on Amazon. And I mean, really, guys, to start doing wholesale, the tools that you use for wholesale are going to be the exact same tools that you use to sell just about anything else on Amazon. So at the most basic level, all you need is Keepa, Seller Amp, and then I typically recommend people use a tool like Seller Board, just so that they can know their numbers kind of at the ASIN level. But that's pretty much the gist. I mean, the only difference between wholesale and OA is with OA or retail arbitrage, you're buying, from the retailer or from the retail website. With wholesale, you're just going straight to the source, but exact same concept.
Okay, right on. And so, I mean, you kind of like hinted at it there, and I think some people could make like the mental leap, but what are some of the advantages of wholesale over OA, or at least perhaps like differences in why somebody might want to pursue wholesale either instead of or perhaps additionally to OA? Because I know I personally do both. I think you're 100% wholesale. I know a lot of people do both. What are some of like the perks of pursuing that business model?
Yeah, good question. And so, guys, what I think the biggest benefit of wholesale is by far is the ability to create relationships with your suppliers, right? Because when you're doing just regular arbitrage, it's a much more transactional approach. Like if I'm buying products from Walmart or Target or Kohl's or Dick's Sporting Goods to flip, that's great, but I'm always going to be looking for the next flip, right? I have no ability to form a relationship with Walmart or form a relationship with Kohl's. But in a wholesale business, relationships are how you get your competitive advantage, right? It is how, like, I continue to buy from the same suppliers year after year. There's some suppliers I've been buying from for 3 or 4 years, and my business with that supplier has actually increased over time because of the fact that I'm getting better discounts, I'm getting better credit terms, I'm building more rapport with my sales rep. It's just much less transactional and much more relationship focused.
Okay, sweet. And if somebody kind of wanted to start getting into like the wholesale side, I know OA is kind of as simple as either sourcing for yourself. I know like we offer a ton of resources, whether it's finding leads or providing the tools and education to find leads on websites. I know wholesale is a little bit different where you actually have to have like you have to make contacts, you have to get in, you have to like get accounts that not everybody could just like walk in or make a phone call and open up an account. How can somebody kind of like go about finding their first supplier distributor? Like, how could somebody break into wholesale basically? Because it's not as easy as going on Walmart or checking the Amazon leads channel and Divine. It's you have to kind of do a little bit of legwork. How do you find your first supplier?
Yeah, so I always recommend people that, especially if you're already doing OA or retail arbitrage successfully, if you're doing arbitrage successfully already, then you have a portfolio of brands that you're making money on, right? So that is always going to be the best way to start. I always recommend just calling up those brands, right? And then asking to either open a wholesale account with those brands that you're already selling through online arbitrage, or if it's a big brand, like for example, like a Procter and Gamble or a Nestle or a General Mills, you can still call them up, but your chances of getting a direct wholesale account with them is much lower, right? Because these huge brands, they don't sell to just anybody. But what you do there is you would just ask them for a reference to an authorized distributor, right? So if I carry a lot of, let's say, General Mills products because I sell grocery and I'm doing it with online arbitrage, well, I could still call up General Mills, but the conversation, instead of being, hey, General Mills, can I have a wholesale account with you guys? It's going to be, hey, General Mills, I know the exact products of yours that I'm looking to sell because I'm already selling some. So would you mind connecting me with the distributor that services my area? Right. And just that simple line alone, some of you guys listening to this conversation, like you can put that into action tomorrow. Right. And I guarantee you, if you do that for every brand that you're already selling in your arbitrage business, I promise you, you will have wholesale accounts within a day or two.
Sweet. Yeah, definitely appreciate that. It sounds like it's kind of a lot of just like hitting the grind in terms of like networking, calling. I know when I've done it, it's just been all right. I'm brewing a pot of coffee, popping in Netflix, sending a bunch of emails, and making a lot of calls, and it's kind of like eventually things dominoes start falling. Do you
Yeah,
have kind of
that's
any
pretty much
like
it.
I know, at least in my experience, I've had to like brute force a lot of these where it's I'm sending emails, I'm making calls. Do you have any sort of like tips and tricks to increase your likelihood of success in being able to kind of close one of those accounts? Or is it usually more just it's a numbers game? If there's 50 places you want to make a wholesale account with, you just got to dial all of them and hopefully a few of them are going to actually like let you open up an account. Like, should I tell them I'm an Amazon seller? Should I make it sound like I'm, kind of doing my own, e-commerce side of things? I'm a retailer. Like, what are some tips and tricks on that side, if there are any?
Yeah, so I'll address, I guess, one of your points first, right? So your one of your questions was, should I tell them I'm an Amazon seller? So you definitely don't want to lead with that, right? So if you're calling up a brand or you're calling up a distributor, pretty much the worst thing you could say is, hey, I'm an Amazon seller and I'm looking to open a wholesale account, right? They will pretty much laugh you off the phone or hang up right then and there. So the key is not to lie. So if they ever ask me if I sell on Amazon, my response is going to be more along the lines of, well, yeah, of course I sell on Amazon. I would be a fool not to be utilizing the largest retail marketplace in the country, right? Of course I sell on Amazon. So when you kind of come with that confidence and that response, they're kind of on their heels like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense, right? Like when you frame it that way, it's a lot less, they're a lot less unlikely, I guess, to want to sell to you. So that's kind of how you address the Amazon seller, I guess, conversation. Now, I like to bill myself as an e-commerce retail and distribution business. And the reason I like to take that approach is because it sounds more professional. And when I say I'm a distributor, it's true, right? Because if I find a good opportunity to sell on Amazon, and let's say I don't have enough capital to buy it, you're telling me that like any other Amazon seller that I know is going to be willing to buy that opportunity from me, right? And if I'm selling to another Amazon seller, that makes me a distributor. So, like I said, I like to bill myself as an e-commerce retailer and distributor. Now, as far as increasing your account open rates, right, and getting yeses from more suppliers, I actually do have a really simple but effective strategy for doing that. And it's all about knowing what you want and being very specific about it. So when you're calling up these suppliers, or right before you call up your supplier, just do like it only takes 3 to 5 minutes of research up front. And all you're going to do is you're going to look at their website, and typically they're going to list the brands that they carry, right? If you're talking about a distributor. So look at the brands they carry, search a couple of those brands on Amazon, make a quick note of 2 to 3 really hot selling products from those brands, right? And then when you call up the supplier, you reference those products. So the conversation looks something like this. Hey, Mr. Supplier, my name's Corey. I run a retail business. I'm based here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I see on your website you guys carry brands X, Y, and Z. And I actually have a couple of products from brands X, Y, and Z that I'm looking to buy, right? Because you did your research. So when you're talking to the supplier, you say, I even have the pricing in mind that I'm willing to pay for these products. So if we can come to an agreement on price, then I can get you an order today. So who should I send that list of products to? Right. So when you come with that approach and you're very specific and you know exactly what you want, they are 10 times more likely to take you seriously and to want to work with you. Like when I take that approach to suppliers, my account open rate is well over 50%. And it can be the same for anybody, even if you're new.
Sorry, I muted myself there. Right on. And so if somebody wants to like get into this, I think that maybe a conception somebody might have is okay, I'm doing this out of a high-rise apartment and wherever somebody might live. OA's been like kind of fine because maybe I flip like smaller items. I was able to do it out of there. I mostly flip on eBay. Like, do I need to get like a warehouse? Like, where can I store all this? Like, how am I able to go from maybe doing 15,000 a month in online arbitrage, which is a really solid number, but being able to go from like something like that to okay, now I want to start ordering in huge like order quantities and wholesale. Like, do I need a warehouse? Do I need any different equipment, or like, is it way different than OA in terms of the things that I need to do it?
So a lot of people do have a warehouse, right? In fact, I even had a warehouse at one point in time. I guess it was about 3-ish years ago. So you can go the warehouse route if you want. Now, that's not what I recommend, right? I did, I guess, 3.2 million in revenue on Amazon in 2023, and I didn't see or touch a single product. In fact, I haven't seen or touched a single product since we sold our warehouse back in 2021. So the move, in my opinion, is to use a prep center. And so for those of you listening to this call, if you're not familiar with what a prep center is, and again, I don't want to be talking at an elementary level if some of you are more advanced, but basically a prep center will receive your inventory from your suppliers, they'll prep it, and they'll turn around and ship it to Amazon FBA for you. So that is how I operate. And it's much easier. Like I said, it's pretty much hands off. So all I have to focus on is buying good products, managing my pricing, and then reordering products as it makes sense. So to answer your question in a short way, warehouse is completely unnecessary.
Right on. And I will note for anybody who's in Divine or perhaps in Divine X and isn't aware of this, if you're a member of Divine, we actually have a partnership with a prep center in a state with no sales tax. So if you've been paying sales tax on stuff that you're flipping, not only do you have to kind of, pay sales tax and then ship it out yourself and deal with all that, you can literally ship it to somewhere, save 8% or whatever sales tax is, and then just pay them like $1.50 per unit to send it out. And then
Yep.
never see the item, never have to prep it, and never pay sales tax on it. So if you're a member of Divine, be sure to take advantage of that. If you're in Divine X, feel free to DM me to get into Divine to be able to start taking advantage of that. But I think one thing that people might be wondering is, what different skill sets do you have to have from OA to wholesale? Like if somebody's either just getting started in OA and struggling, or if they've been crushing it, they're wondering if they should move into wholesale. Is it like a different skill set, or is it pretty much just playing with larger numbers? What would make somebody better or worse at it?
So that's actually a good question. So I've actually been asked this a couple of times recently, mainly from people that are looking to transition from OA to wholesale, right? So when it comes to wholesale, the number one skill that you don't necessarily need to have it, but you're going to probably learn it along the way is how to be a salesperson, right? And I know that that probably turns off a lot of people, but bear with me. It's not like you're not being like a sleazy salesperson making a million cold calls a day. Like, yes, you're going to have to get on the phone and make some calls, but I'm more so talking about what it takes to build relationships, build rapport, follow up, be persistent, right? It's just the qualities of a salesperson as opposed to the actual like act of being a salesperson. So again, like I mentioned earlier, OA is a little more transactional, whereas wholesale is all focused on like following up and getting those accounts. And another skill that translates really well from the OA world to the wholesale world is reading a Keepa graph, right? So if you've had success with OA, you know how to read Keepa, right? And in wholesale, that's what it's all about. It's reading the Keepa graph so that you can make profitable, responsible buying decisions. and then being able and being willing to follow up with some of these suppliers as long as it takes to get the account to then purchase your inventory, right? So really the two main skills are, I mean, you could call it sales skills, but really it's just persistence and follow up and ability to read a keep a graph.
Okay, right on. And at what point does it make sense? Because you've mentioned kind of like some of the things that people might need to like know or the skills. Does it make sense for somebody who's never sold on Amazon before to go straight into wholesale? Should they have demonstrated a certain amount of success or competence before getting into it? Like, how does somebody know that they're ready to get into wholesale?
So my typical advice, right, and it always depends on the person. It's always on a case by case basis, but the typical person, I typically recommend that you start with arbitrage, right? You do some online arbitrage, you do some retail arbitrage, you figure out how to send those first couple of shipments, you learn how to read a keep a graph when the stakes are a little lower, right, in an arbitrage context. And then, like I said, once you've mastered the keep a graph and you've got some capital to play with, usually in the 5 to 10K range, that's when it makes sense to jump into wholesale. Now, with that said, I know plenty of people that had never sold on Amazon before and they jumped right into wholesale, right? They'd never even heard of Keepa, but they start with wholesale and they've had success with the model. So really, like I said, it depends more on the person than on the experience, because somebody that's going to be successful with OA can easily be successful with wholesale, right? It's all about the effort and the reps that you're willing to put in.
Okay, right on. Somebody asked in the chat, I guess I'll kind of like paraphrase this.
Mhm.
But they were wondering, like, do people really do like a background check on you in terms of like, oh, like they're just an Amazon seller? Are they like legit, if you will? And even if they do, like, how often do they really care? Because I know that's one thing a lot of people, like you said, is the first thing you say shouldn't be like, hey, I'm an Amazon seller. But if they ask, you should be like, oh yeah, like obviously I'm like that's 50% of all e-commerce transactions. Of course I sell on Amazon. Like you don't. But
Right.
like to what extent do they usually A, check and then B, care? And I'm sure it's case by case. Would love to hear your overall experience.
So if you've got a website, right? Because when I reach out to suppliers, I'm reaching out from like Corey at mycompanyname.com. So they are pretty often going to check out your website, right? They're not going to do a deep dive, but they're at least going to look at your homepage and see what you're all about, which is why I recommend having at least some sort of just informational website. And all it's got to say is who you are and what you do. Like a one-page landing page. That's all you need, because they probably will check that out. Now, as far as like how often do they care that you sell on Amazon, it goes back to the point that I made earlier, where if you come to them with that very specific approach and kind of that line that I gave earlier, where, hey, I've done my research, I know what brands you guys carry, I know the exact products that I'm interested in, and I even know the quantities that I'm ready to buy. When you come with that approach, they don't give a shit if you sell on Amazon. They're looking to move product, right? They just want to know if you're a serious buyer. And when you come to them with that approach, that shows them you're serious, right? In fact, I've had suppliers say, "Oh, we don't sell to Amazon sellers," and I come back to them with, "Oh, understood. Well, that's a shame because I've got a purchase order right here that I'm pretty much ready to place with you guys. I know the brands you carry, I know the products I'm looking for. So I'll just take this to your competitor, right?" And then they say, "Oh, well, wait, hold on, wait. Like you're ready to buy now? Let's talk, right?" And they just completely forgot that you were talking about Amazon in the first place. So again, it's more about your positioning than anything.
Okay, right on. And somebody else asked, and this might kind of pertain more to like an overarching like way you approach distributors. They said if we want to do wholesale with a prep center in a non-tax state, should we build relationships with distributors in that state specifically? Or does it really matter where the distributor is located, or for the most part, just they're shipping it to wherever they're shipping it to? So if I lived in Georgia, does it matter if the wholesaler I'm talking to is in Washington? Am I more likely to get someone if I have a nexus in that state, or does it not really matter?
So with wholesale, right, we're actually not paying sales tax on any of our inventory that we're buying, because we are buying as a business, we're buying as a reseller. So actually the end customer who buys from us is going to be the one that pays the sales tax. So without getting too much into the weeds on like the legal side or the tax side, you'd basically register as a retailer with the Department of Revenue in the state that you're located in, and that would allow you to purchase inventory sales tax free. So like for example, I have I guess three main prep centers, right? One of which is in Oregon, which I think Oregon is a sales tax free state, right? But one of
Yes.
which is in Georgia, Georgia is not a sales tax free state, but I don't have to worry about it because I'm a reseller. And then one of them is in New York, and again, it doesn't matter because I'm a reseller. I'm not going to be paying sales tax as it is. So that's something that it's kind of a non-issue, right? But you're going to have more luck finding suppliers that are adjacent to your shipping address, right? So for example, that my main prep center down in Georgia, we've got some supply, in fact, a lot of suppliers down in Georgia, even though I'm in North Carolina, because those suppliers are going to be shipping to my prep center down in Georgia. So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you giving that distinction and that overview as well, because I'm sure a lot of people weren't aware. If you were kind of that intermediary within wholesale, it doesn't really matter on the tax side compared to OA or RA, where you kind of have to provide at least a little bit of documentation to get those tax exemptions if you aren't shipping them to somewhere in a state with no sales tax.
Right.
Already kind of gotten this a little bit. You kind of mentioned some like tips and tricks. And so the one is, I was kind of asking, let's say I have 50 suppliers or wholesale accounts I'm trying to contact, some tips and tricks to be able to get more of those to stick. But how do I even go about finding who or where to contact in the first place?
So let's take the angle of like we're reaching out to distributors, right? Because when it comes to finding brands to contact, it's just a matter of finding brands that are already selling well on Amazon and calling them up and asking for a wholesale account, right? So I think the tricky part is when it comes to finding good distributors, because distributors are a dime a dozen. But a strategy that I've employed that actually works really well, it's super basic. You might think like, does this actually work? It does. But Google is going to be by far the easiest way to find suppliers, and you're going to use this search term phrase, right? So I just type in category name, distributor, and then your city, right? So like I said, my main prep center is located down in Savannah, Georgia. So I might, if I'm looking for tool suppliers, which I love selling tools, I might just search on Google tool distributors, Savannah, Georgia. But what I like to do to take it even a step further and get even better results is not just choose a main category to search for, but choose a subcategory, right? So, for example, hand tools is a pretty big subcategory within the tools main category. So I might search hand tool distributors, Savannah, Georgia, and I found that to be a much more targeted approach. And then when you've got those Google results in front of you, there's three main criteria that I run any potential suppliers through to pretty much verify that they're going to be a good fit. So I can go into those real quick. The first criteria to verify a supplier is you want to make sure they're B2B, business to business, right? Because the best suppliers with the best pricing, they're going to be strictly B2B. They're not going to sell to any just random consumer off the street. The second main criteria is they are going to sell primarily to retailers, right? So big distributors that that do a lot of business. You want to find distributors that sell primarily to retailers, right? Because we're a retail business. We want to make sure that we kind of fit the mold of the customer that they're used to working with. And then the third criteria is that they've got to carry brand name products that are already selling well on Amazon. And that's pretty easy to verify because just about any supplier out there is going to list the brands they carry on their website. So it's as simple as going to their website. You'll probably recognize a lot of the brand names, but if it's more of like a niche supplier, you might just have to type those brand names into Amazon, make sure they got a couple of products that are already selling, and then boom, they hit that criteria. So when you find a supplier that meets all three of those criteria, it just comes down to price, right? And price is always negotiable. So I hope that kind of simplifies the process a little bit for some folks.
Sure. I think the last like technical question we have before kind of just want to like tie a bow on things is like you said, it comes down to price. We've mentioned how to find suppliers, how to increase the likelihood they open a wholesale account. How negotiable is price when you're looking at things? And what are some tips and tricks that you have to be able to bring down your per unit cost as low as possible? Because it's not like OA on like Walmart where like the price just is what the price is. To an extent, everything is negotiable most of the time. And what are some ways that you can, if normally on a retail website something $50 and on wholesale you can get it for 35, what are some ways that you can maybe negotiate it down even further to be able to just get the fattest margins possible?
Yeah, so I've actually got a really effective strategy for getting discount. And it's a way to ask for a discount without actually asking for a discount. And I promise you guys this works. So if you've got a wholesale supplier that you're considering buying from, try this out. So what you do is let's say you've got a supplier that has, let's just say 5 different products that maybe the products are kind of like borderline, right? Like you might buy them at the current price, but they don't look great. So what you do is you draft 2 purchase orders, right? So purchase order one lists those 5 products at the current price that the supplier is offering them at. And it's a small order, right? It might be a few $100, depending on how expensive the products are. It might be, $1,000, right? Small order. But purchase order two applies a, let's just say a theoretical 10% discount, right? And let's just assume that if you were able to get that discount, that they would be definitely profitable and you would proceed with the order. So purchase order two applies a theoretical 10% discount, but purchase order two is much bigger, right? So what you do is you call up your supplier, or you call up your sales rep and you say, hey, Mr. Sales Rep, I reviewed some of your products. I've actually got an order ready to go. I've actually got 2 orders that I'm going to send over to you, right? So you'll see purchase order one's a little smaller. Purchase order two, if you can get us the pricing that I've listed there on the second purchase order, you can go ahead and process that order. I can get you payment today and we can proceed. So I'm going to send you both over and just go ahead and process whichever order you think you can work with, right? So when you kind of put the ball in their court like that, they're looking at 2 potential purchase orders, and let's say one's $500 and the other is $5,000. Well, they're going to bend over backwards. They're going to be running down the hall to their supervisor, trying to get you the pricing that you need to process purchase order number 2. So again, that's a way to just ask for a discount without asking for a discount. And guys, I promise you that is a crazy effective method, and it works like probably 70% of the time.
Dude, right on. Like I said, we appreciate your time a lot, and we know that you're kind of talking to a few different audiences, including Reezy Resells, who's both a member and a friend of Divine as well later. So if people want to know more, I'm sure they can hop on that one that's happening soon as well. I guess kind of just finally, where can people find and connect with you online? I'm going to link your socials below, but is there a best place for people to consume your content or reach out? I know you have quite a following on several platforms. Wasn't sure if there was a preferred place for people to be able to reach out or consume your content.
Yeah, so guys, I mean, all my best content really is on YouTube. So I'm just at Corey Ganim on YouTube. I've got, I think, probably close to 300 plus videos on there so far, all made within the last year. So they're super recent, they're super relevant. Some of them are like very in depth. Anything from finding suppliers to contacting suppliers. I've got like some cold call breakdowns on the channel as well. So check me out over on YouTube. And then as far as like getting in touch with me directly, usually Instagram is going to be the best place to do that. And I'm at Corey Ganim on Instagram as well. So you guys can shoot me a DM there if you'd like.
Sweet. And then if somebody did want to, like they say, all right, this sounds cool. Probably I've already been selling on Amazon, or at least possess a basic level of like competence and qualifications to get into the wholesale game. What is the best way that somebody can start now or soon? I know that you have an upcoming resource coming out that you've been kind of mentioning on social media that I personally signed up for. I know other people have as well. What's the best way that people can get started as soon as possible?
So if you guys want pretty much like the A to Z roadmap when it comes to wholesale, I'm going to be hosting a live 7-day training, and it's more of like a challenge, right? It's actually called the Wholesale Challenge, and it's going to be starting this coming Monday, and it's going to be running for, like I said, 7 days straight. So what I love about this particular model is I don't like to call it a course because it's not a course, right? It's a live training where every night, everybody that signs up, we get on a webinar like this, and I show you not only do I show you what to do, but I show you how to do it. And each day is dedicated to a specific, what I like to call pillar of wholesale. So for example, day 2 is entirely spent finding suppliers. So I'm going to teach you guys how to find suppliers, and then I'm going to show you with screen share using the tools that I use, all the good details. We've got an entire day dedicated to contacting suppliers, an entire day dedicated to leveraging virtual talent to scale, and a ton of bonuses, guest interviews, just a ton of wholesale related content. And that's starting, like I said, this coming Monday. And it's going to be recorded. So if you decide to join us for the challenge, but you can't show up for one of the sessions, you're going to get lifetime access to the recordings. And so Casey actually has, I think Casey, you have a $100 discount for anybody that's interested in joining us for that. And so I don't know if you want to drop your link in the chat or if you've got a code that you want to use. But guys, the website is wholesalechallenge.com. And then I think Casey's going to drop his link in the chat. So if you use that link from Casey, you will get an additional $100 off, which, and it's already a very reasonably priced training compared to what's out there on the market. And Casey, I don't know if you're throwing in any bonuses with that as well. Certainly no pressure, but if you are, you can go ahead and kind of share what that might be.
Yeah, definitely. So we are, and so I've kind of been tweeting this out here for anybody who's listening in. If you did kind of want to hop in on that, we are going to add a free month of access to Divine, whether you're a new member listening in from Divine or you're a current member right now. We'll add that on there just to kind of help show some love and appreciation for you helping us make our members money, including the link that I threw in there automatically applies $100 off. And if I recall correctly, I want to make sure I even kind of like got this right because this was kind of insane. You were even saying if somebody goes through this and for some reason like they aren't happy, you guys are offering a full refund plus an additional $50 back, correct? So kind of if somebody's on the fence, no reason not to.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly right. So that's kind of our, like, we call it a better than money back guarantee. So exactly like Casey said, you could even go through the entire challenge, decide it wasn't a good fit for whatever reason. At the end of the challenge, we'd issue you a full refund and throw you an extra $50 on top of it. That's how confident I am in the content. This is the second time we've hosted a live wholesale challenge. We did it for the first time ever back, I think this past July of 2023. We had, I think, close to 550 people join us the first time around. The feedback was insane. So, like, if you guys check out the website, you'll see we've got like 100 plus testimonials there. It was just an outstanding event. The feedback was great. So, yeah, if you're on the fence and if you have questions too, you can DM me on Instagram, DM me on Twitter, hit Casey up, right? Because he's a part of it as
Yep.
well. He's familiar with the content. And then I do see somebody had a question here. Let's see. Big Brown said, "Is there software or anything else we would need for the wholesale challenge?" So there's not any like there's nothing that you like must have in order to participate. You don't have like you could just show up even as a brand new seller with no tools and learn a lot from the challenge. But like I was mentioning earlier, just the bare minimum tools needed to execute a wholesale business would be things like Keepa, like SellerAmp, and really those are the only two that like you 100% must have. But tools like Sellerboard, I also recommend as well because they just help you know your numbers. And I think Sellerboard's like $15 a month, it's super cheap. So is Keepa and SellerAmp, they're also very cheap tools.
Right on. Yeah. So super appreciate your time. Know you have, like I said, that one upcoming with Reezy as well, since like so much like I think it speaks volumes that pretty much every I hate to use the term influencer, but a lot of people kind of with the platform in the Amazon game online across a bunch of platforms are doing our best to kind of make this resource available to everyone. Because I personally went through the first time you guys did this. I know a lot of other people did as well, and was able to open up a handful of accounts and make a good amount of money from it. And now excited to kind of be helping people start to dip their toes into the wholesale waters for those who want it. So yeah, I've linked below here, and I will in Divine as well as Divine X. If anybody wants to follow Corey, I'll link your socials below. I'll link that link to the wholesale challenge, which will automatically apply $100 off. So if you're interested, be sure to go through that link. But really appreciate your time, Corey, and I'm super excited to be seeing a lot of people here in the wholesale challenge as we go through it next week as well. So always appreciate when we're able to hop on. I know this isn't the first time you've hopped on and shared some knowledge with Divine, but really excited to be getting some members into wholesale here and just helping everybody make money on Amazon. So thank you again.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me, man. I appreciate you putting me in front of Divine. And guys, like I said, for anybody, if you're watching this live, if you're watching the replay, just keep in mind that we do close the cart this coming Sunday night at midnight PST, right? So we kick off on Monday. You got to you're basically you're either in or you're out by Sunday night. And if you have questions, if you're on the fence, let me know and I'll get you taken care of. So Casey, thank you so much again for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you so much, Corey. Sure, I'll be seeing you around, talking to you pretty much every day like we do. But thank you again for kind of just hopping in here and making sure that everybody's getting put on. So you take care. Thank you, everybody who is on here. If you joined in late, I will be dropping the recording tomorrow for you to go back and listen. And just looking forward to another week of making money together.